Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the energy around you and the person on your mind, but I want to say this clearly before we start. We are using the tarot as psychological symbolism here, not as a fixed prediction. So take this as a mirror, a story, a reflection of patterns, emotions, and hidden realizations that may be playing out between you and this person. And the first card we have here is the King of Swords. Okay, interesting. Because immediately, this tells me somebody has been thinking, not just feeling, thinking, analyzing, watching themselves, watching you, watching the connection from a distance. And I feel like this person has been trying to approach their emotions from the mind instead of the heart. The King of Swords is controlled. He doesn't like chaos. He doesn't like emotional messiness. He doesn't like admitting that something has power over him. Male or female, it doesn't matter the gender. This is just energy. So this person may have been telling themselves, no, I'm fine. I'm logical. I know what I'm doing. I'm not that attached. But here's where something is different. The more they tried to rationalize their feelings for you, the more they realized those feelings were not going away. It's almost like their mind finally ran out of excuses. They may have tried to label this connection as attraction, curiosity, timing, nostalgia, or unfinished business. But deep down, they are starting to understand that none of those words are big enough. This is love. And I feel like that realization is uncomfortable for them because the King of Swords does not like losing control. But love, real love, has a way of getting underneath the armor. So right now, this person may seem quiet, distant, or composed on the outside, but internally, there is a major shift happening. They're not seeing you the same anymore. Something about your absence, your silence, your strength, or the way you stopped chasing has made them finally sit with the truth. And the truth is hitting them hard. And now, with this next energy coming through, what I'm feeling is very different from that cold, distant, overly controlled place. Because this is not just realization in the mind anymore. This is realization becoming something they want to build with. And that's important because before, this person may have understood the connection on a mental level. They may have known there was something special here. They may have known you affected them. They may have known you were not like everyone else, but knowing something and being willing to do something with that, knowing are two completely different things. And I feel like that is where the shift is happening. This person is starting to look at this connection and ask themselves, what would it actually take to make this real? Not just think about you, not just watch you, not just miss you quietly, but actually show up in a way that has weight behind it. There's a very grounded feeling here. Almost like somebody who has been standing at a distance is now realizing, I can't keep treating something this meaningful like it's optional. And that may be why the truth is hitting them so hard. Because love is one thing when it stays in the imagination. It's one thing when it stays hidden, controlled, private, unspoken. But the moment love asks for maturity, effort, consistency, and honesty, that's when this person has to face themselves. And I feel like they're realizing that you were not asking for the impossible. You were asking for something simple but real. Presence, effort, clarity, respect. A connection that did not leave you guessing all the time. And now they may be seeing that what you wanted from them was not too much. It only felt like too much because they were not ready to meet it. That's a hard realization because now they can't hide behind the idea that you were demanding or emotional or hard to understand. They're starting to see that you were actually very clear. You wanted something that had roots. And what unsettles them most is not just that they love you. It's that they may have finally realized it after you stopped reaching for them. And that's where this next energy feels very telling. Because there is something here about a cycle that they thought was already understood. Almost like in their mind, they assumed the connection would remain open. Even if they were distant, even if they were quiet, even if they were inconsistent, there was this unspoken belief that you would still be there emotionally, still feeling them, still making space for them somewhere in your heart. And I don't feel like this came from cruelty. I feel like it came from comfort. They became comfortable with your patience. They became comfortable with your softness. They became comfortable with the way you could understand them, even when they were not explaining themselves well. And that is a very specific kind of emotional safety. When somebody knows this person gets me, this person sees the deeper reason behind my behavior. This person doesn't just judge the surface. But the problem is, sometimes people mistake understanding for permission. And I feel like that's part of what they're seeing now. Your silence is showing them something that your words could not show them anymore. Because when you were explaining, when you were reaching, when you were trying to keep the connection balanced, they could still hide inside the idea that there was time. They could say, "We'll talk later. I'll figure this out later. I'll deal with these feelings later." But now later is starting to feel very different. Now your absence has weight. Now your quietness has meaning. Now the space between you is not empty. It's reflecting everything they avoided. And I feel like they're replaying things. Little moments, conversations, the way you checked on them, the way you forgave something that still hurt you, the way you stayed soft even when you had every reason to close off. At the time, they may not have fully absorbed it. But now it feels bigger. Now they're realizing that your love was not weakness. Your patience was not something to take for granted. Your openness was not guaranteed. And this is why the regret feels deeper than just, "I miss you." It feels more like, "I didn't understand what I had access to." And that is not ordinary regret. That is the beginning of them realizing this connection was never casual. And when I say never casual, I mean this person is starting to understand that the pain attached to this connection is not random. It's not just disappointment. It's not just distance. It's not just two people who didn't know how to communicate clearly at the same time. There is something here that touched a much deeper place in them. A place they usually protect. A place they may not even admit exists. And that's why this realization feels so sharp for them now. Because if this were only attraction, they could distract themselves. If this were only curiosity, they could move on and tell themselves it was just a phase. If this were only unfinished business, they could keep it in the past and let time cover it up. But this feels different because your energy got underneath the surface. And I feel like you saw something in this person that they are not used to people seeing. You saw beyond the performance, beyond the coolness, beyond the control, beyond the version of them that tries to stay untouchable. You may have seen the fear underneath, the sensitivity underneath, the part of them that wants love but does not always know how to receive it without feeling exposed. And that is why this connection has stayed with them. Because you didn't just trigger desire in them, you triggered recognition. It's almost like being around you made them aware of the parts of themselves they had been avoiding. The guarded parts, the wounded parts, the parts that wanted closeness but kept creating distance the moment closeness became real. And here's where it gets interesting. They may have tried to make this about you. They may have tried to say, this person affects me too much, or this connection feels complicated, or I don't know why I can't stop thinking about them. But now they're realizing the connection was not only showing them who you are, it was showing them who they are. And that can be uncomfortable. Because once they see you differently, they can't go back to pretending you were just another person. And once they see you differently, they also begin seeing themselves differently. And that's where the pressure starts to build. Because seeing themselves differently means they can't keep using the same old reasons to stay silent. They can't keep saying, I'm just not ready. If deep down they know they're afraid, they can't keep saying, I don't know what I feel. If their body already reacts to your absence, if their mind keeps circling back to you, if their heart keeps pulling them toward the very thing they tried to avoid. And I feel like this is the part where they are suspended between two versions of themselves. One version wants to stay safe. One version wants to keep control. One version wants to act like nothing is happening, like they can continue with their life and keep these feelings neatly tucked away somewhere private. But the other version wants to tell the truth. The other version wants to reach out, to explain, to apologize, to say something real, maybe even something they have never said out loud before. And that inner conflict is intense because this person is not just afraid of speaking. They are afraid of what speaking would require from them. Because honesty would mean they can't hide behind confusion anymore. Honesty would mean they have to admit that they knew more than they said. They felt more than they showed. They cared more than they allowed you to see. And I feel like that is why, from the outside, they may still look quiet. They may still look composed. They may still look like they are not doing much. But internally, there is a lot happening. A lot of pressure, a lot of emotion, a lot of, what do I do with this now? And for some of you, this person may be realizing that silence protected them for a while, but it also cost them closeness with you. That's the part that hurts. Because they may have thought silence was keeping them safe, but now silence is making them feel farther from the person they actually want. And their biggest fear may not be that you reject them. Their biggest fear may be that when they finally find the courage to come forward, you have already outgrown the version of them that kept running. And this is where your energy becomes very important. Because I don't feel like this shift happened only because they suddenly woke up one day and decided to understand you. I feel like something changed in you. Something got quiet. Not cold, not cruel, not trying to punish them, just quiet. It feels like you pulled your energy back into yourself. Like instead of stretching your heart towards someone who kept hesitating, you started protecting your own peace. You stopped explaining the same pain. You stopped trying to make them understand something they already had enough information to understand. And I feel like that is what they are noticing. Because when you were available, they could delay. When you were reaching, they could hesitate. When you were still emotionally open in the same way, they could convince themselves that there was no real consequence to their silence. But now your energy feels different. You may still care. You may still have love there. But you are not holding the connection the same way. You are not carrying the emotional weight by yourself the same way. And that changes everything. Because now this person is not just feeling your love, they are feeling your boundary. And for someone who became used to your softness, your boundary feels loud. It says, I love myself too. It says, I can care about you and still choose peace. It says, I am not going to keep abandoning myself just to prove that my love is real. And I feel like this person is realizing that your strength is not anger, your distance is not drama, your silence is not a game. It is self-respect. And that is why it is affecting them so deeply. Because they may have expected you to keep circling back, to keep making room, to keep waiting for them to finally be ready. But now there is this feeling of wait, they're not standing in the same place anymore. And something about that is making your value painfully clear. Something is different because they are not only realizing they love you, they are realizing you may no longer be available in the way you once were. And that realization is starting to create urgency inside them. And that urgency feels very connected to communication. Because I feel like this person is starting to hover around the idea of saying something. Not necessarily rushing in with a perfect speech, not necessarily knowing exactly how to fix everything, but there is this energy of somebody standing close to the door, close to the message, close to the conversation, and still hesitating. They may be thinking about what they would say if they reached out. They may be imagining how you would respond. They may be wondering if you would be warm, distant, guarded, silent, or if you would even care to hear them anymore. And I feel like that uncertainty is making them nervous because they are used to having some kind of control, even if that control was just silence. Even if that control was just keeping their feelings to themselves. But now, silence is not giving them the same comfort. Silence is starting to feel like pressure. Because every day they don't say something, the space gets louder. Every day they hold back, they become more aware that they are choosing distance, even if distance is not what they actually want. And that's the contradiction here. They want movement, but they're afraid of what movement could reveal. They want to be seen by you, but they're also afraid that you now see them too clearly. They want to come forward, but they may not want to come forward empty-handed. They know this can't just be a casual, "Hey, how are you?" If the truth underneath it is much bigger than that. And I feel like there is something they want to admit, something like, I didn't understand it when you were there. I didn't understand the depth of what I felt until your energy changed. But saying that requires humility. It requires them to acknowledge that your absence taught them something your presence was already trying to show them. And that is not easy for someone who has been protecting their pride. So yes, there is urgency here, but it is mixed with fear. And what may push them even closer to action is the thought that if they wait too long, someone else may recognize your worth before they finally have the courage to do it. And that thought is uncomfortable for them because it brings up something they may not want to admit. There is a part of this person that may have believed they had more time, more room, more chances to figure themselves out before they had to truly face what this connection meant. But now, the idea of you being seen by someone else, appreciated by someone else, chosen by someone else, it does something to them. And I want to be careful with this because this is not about making jealousy romantic. Jealousy is not love by itself. But sometimes jealousy becomes a mirror. It shows a person where they were attached, where they were afraid, where they were not being honest with themselves. And I feel like that is what's happening here. The thought of you moving on is making them confront the truth they kept trying to manage. Because as long as you were emotionally available, they could tell themselves, I don't have to decide right now. But if they sense that your heart may be opening in another direction, suddenly everything feels more real. Suddenly, the connection does not feel safely paused. Suddenly, your silence does not feel like patience. It feels like a door that may actually close. And that is where the emotional pressure increases. They may start imagining you laughing with someone else, being understood by someone else, receiving the effort, consistency, and clarity that they held back from giving. And that thought does not just make them jealous, it makes them regretful. Because now they are seeing that what they delayed, someone else might not delay. What they hesitated to value, someone else may recognize immediately. And that is a hard thing to sit with. Because this person is realizing love is not only about feeling deeply, it is also about showing up before the moment passes. So yes, something is different. They finally realized the truth because the possibility of losing you made denial impossible. But here's the thing. Fear can wake someone up, but fear cannot be the only reason they come forward. Because if they are going to meet you now, it cannot just be because they are afraid of losing you. It has to be accountability. Accountability means they have to sit with themselves without performing, without defending, without trying to make the story more comfortable than it was. And I feel like that is exactly what this person is doing internally. There is a very quiet energy here, not quiet like avoidance anymore. Quiet like reflection. Quiet like somebody finally stepping away from the noise, the excuses, the distractions, and asking, what part did I play in this? And that question changes everything. Because before, they may have focused on the situation, the timing, the distance, the misunderstandings, the intensity, the reasons why it was hard. But now, they are starting to look at themselves. And that is a different level of realization. They may be seeing where they were guarded, where they gave you just enough to keep the connection alive, but not enough to make you feel secure. Where they pulled back when things got too real. Where they let pride speak louder than love. And I feel like this is not easy for them to admit. Because it means acknowledging that you were not wrong for wanting more. You were not wrong for wanting consistency. You were not wrong for needing clarity. You were not wrong for feeling hurt when their actions did not match the depth of what you felt between you. And I feel like that is one of the biggest realizations coming through here. They are beginning to understand that love is not just something you feel privately. Love is not just thinking about someone late at night. Love is not just missing someone when they are gone. Love has to become behavior. It has to become honesty. It has to become presence. It has to become the willingness to show up even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. And your boundary may have taught them that, not by forcing them, not by chasing them, not by begging them to understand, but by stepping back and letting them experience the silence their own choices created. That is powerful because now they may know that words alone will not be enough. A message may open the door, but changed behavior is what proves whether they can walk through it. So the question now is not just whether they love you. The question is whether they can meet you differently now, not from fear, but from truth. And that is where this energy becomes more grounded, because this does not feel like a sudden emotional rush that disappears the next day. This feels like someone looking at what has been planted between you and realizing this did not grow overnight. This was built through time, through patience, through moments I didn't fully appreciate when they were happening. And I feel like that is why your energy is so powerful here. You gave this connection something real. You gave it attention. You gave it care. You gave it emotional consistency, even when things were uncertain. And now this person is looking at the roots of this connection and realizing that your love was not shallow. It was not temporary. It was not something they could just replace or recreate somewhere else. But here's the thing. Just because something has roots does not mean you have to keep watering it by yourself. And I feel like that is the part you are being reminded of. You do not need to chase someone who is only now realizing your value. You do not need to prove that you were worth choosing. You do not need to keep standing there with an open heart while someone decides whether they are ready to respect it. Because, yes, this person may finally understand. They may finally see that they were trying to stay logical while love was growing underneath all of that control. They may finally see how denial turned into regret, how your silence became a mirror, how your boundaries made them realize what they had been taking for granted. But their realization is only one part of the story. Your peace matters too. Your self-respect matters too. Your emotional safety matters too. And I feel like something is different because you are no longer standing in the same place asking, do they love me? You are asking a deeper question now. Can they love me in a way that feels honest? Can they show up in a way that feels safe? Can they meet me with presence, not just emotion? And that is the shift. Because they may be madly in love with you, yes, but love has to become something you can trust. So the next energy would show whether this person has the courage to act from love instead of fear.